What are your thoughts on radiate love? Get to radiate love. What does that really mean?
And science shows that everything vibrates.
Yeah, man.
Right. And whether it's a table.
Yeah, believe it or not.
Yeah, like everything vibrates. It's a collection of molecules that vibrate at different rates of speed.
Yep.
And everything that vibrates puts off waves. So it's like very literally radiating some kind of wave, some kind of frequency. And humans put off some really powerful ones. I put off some powerful waves out of my heart, out of my mind. And these waves always bring back what I put out.
Nice.
So as I radiate love, I think that's one of my principal reasons for being on the planet, is to radiate love and learn how to embody the fullness of radiating love.
Right.
Learn to embody the fullness of creating. What I've appreciated about working with you is like radiating the fullness of our creativity, like getting down into the soul level and radiating deeply and getting in touch with what we came to the planet to bring.
Yeah. At a really deep level, right?
Right. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah, because it's unfortunately at such an unconscious level sometimes till we start to really get back in touch with who we really are.
And that's where all I think the frustrating patterns come. It's like I can see that I'm looping this pattern with my wife, or I can see I'm looping this pattern with employers, or I can see I'm looping this pattern attracting a certain type of client. And it's like that pattern is going to keep functioning until I go deep to understand it, to understand the imprint.
Nice.
And then to shift the imprint. Like I have a choice. It's just important to be aware. And every time I become aware of something, I now create another choice or another choice point where I get to choose.
Yeah, it reminds me of epigenetics.
Say more.
It reminds me of epigenetics. So it's like there's DNA, and the part of, epigenetics means that you can shift. You know, your DNA might be set up a certain way, but you can turn genes on and off. So same with the imprint. You can shift the imprint, you can shift your genes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was thinking too, I had a powerful experience at a seminar one time. We were talking about the role of ancestors and looking at epigenetics, and they pointed out that if we carry seven generations of stuff, that's 55 human beings.
Oh, that's interesting math.
Right? And to feel the weight of that.
Yeah, like heavy.
To feel the weight of our habits. I mean, just kicked me the other night. Like, if the brain is a bundle of habits, there's a scientific evidence that the brain is just a bundle of habits.
I love that.
Is it possible to rewire sexual orientation? Is it possible to rewire, anything?
Yeah, because your thoughts do change your chemistry.
Right. Like so much of our, what I tie up in my identity is those can be strengthened or not strengthened, right? I've heard neurologically talking about, well, they're deepening canyons. And every time I put energy into a thought or energy into a pattern, I'm deepening the canyon. And it's a beautiful idea in epigenetics that, like, just because the canyon's there, like, I get a choice to make a new one and I can strengthen that. Like neuroplasticity says, I can change, and I can choose to change, and I can put intention into whatever I'd like to become. And sure, like there are some pretty strong tendencies.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying ignore
Right.
ignore the tendencies, but ultimately, like, I get to choose and I get to sculpt in consistent application of proper thought, and especially loading that with powerful energy and powerful intention behind it. Like, I really do get to sculpt my experience, no matter what I experience, no matter what traumas are carried from my ancestors. And I guess the whole part of the experience was, they had me stand in the middle. They asked me to bring up 10 of my ancestors and a specific memory and a specific phrase, and they asked someone to role play that ancestor and put their hand on my shoulder.
Ooh.
So by the end of the exercise, I had these 10 people all touching my shoulder. They were repeating over and over the phrases that I gave them. And it was wild because some of the phrases were like, "I'm so proud of you," but they were loaded with this energy that was just like ... and I hate myself. And it was wild to feel all of that energy from all the ancestors. And then the facilitator asked me to take a step forward. And I tried, and there were, 10 hands clamped on my shoulder, and I wasn't going anywhere no matter how hard I pushed.
Wow.
And I remember, like, it just got real for me because I hear so many thoughts and feelings all the time.
Yeah.
And they're not all mine. In fact, it
Yeah,
seems like
right.
a lot of them aren't. Like, I've inherited so many of them and all these voices, that are whispering all this stuff.
Yep.
And it got so real. And I remember just screaming, like, stop. It is time to heal. It is time to love every part of us, every whole of us. There is no parts, just the wholeness.
Yeah, yeah.
Time to love every thread that's the wholeness that is me and that is my being. Let's move forward. It was a really powerful experience.
Yeah, very. You said they said they're so proud of you. Then did they say something like they hated themselves or something? I didn't catch that part. Say that again. They said, I'm so proud of you.
That was one of the phrases from my ancestor was, "I'm so proud of you." And as we debriefed, the proxy said, wow, as I was saying that, I felt an energy of, like, these are the words that I'm saying, but there was another energy underneath the words. It was like a really loaded, it was like a backhanded compliment, basically. Like, "I'm really proud of you because I hate myself."
That's what I thought I heard, that they hated themselves. So I didn't catch all of the wording.
And
Okay.
it was like that energy is what was on my shoulder. And so it was like, even though I was hearing these like kind words,
Yeah.
it was mixed with a different flavor. And it was really powerful for me to become aware of how many times am I repeating that pattern? Did I inherit, like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you," and I'll, give compliments to people, but they're loaded with this energy that's completely unhelpful or detrimental.
Yeah, well, is it more of a well, it's really a sick one because it's maybe not at the level of jealousy, but it's just like, I'm so proud of you. I wish I was you. There's no way I can be you. I know I can't because I hate myself so much. I mean, there's like, talk about conversations, right? Lots more words than are even being heard. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow, that's big. It's really big. Cool.
And that's part of, I spoke that I feel like I walk between worlds.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very aware of my ancestors and I feel them frequently. Like, I'm very aware of other souls that aren't embodied at this time.
Yep.
And, as I've done different energy work and proxy, and this comes back to Radiate Love, I've done all this work, epigenetically for ancestors and all
Right.
these patterns, and I feel them. And I've been really connected to the family history. There are a lot of records, I've been out to the grave sites and I've looked at, there are a lot of narratives about my pioneer ancestors that in 1856 left England and walked across the United States plains and came down to barren areas to settle and had all their crops washed away and starved for years. And it's like I've got all these seeds of scarcity and of lack and of
Sure.
loss.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of ways, I find myself operating from those same frameworks until I become aware of them and choose to change it. And the key for me has been just to love it all. Like, instead of being frustrated or in a victim mentality about like, well, why do I feel this way? And it's not fair that I was given this genetic makeup, to shift that into like, well, here's a pattern that got them through whatever they needed to get through. And now it's up to me to choose what I'm going to do next. And I choose a different way of interacting with the world. I choose an abundance mindset. I choose
Right.
to let go of the scarcity and replace it. And that love has been the key there. I choose to bless and release, XYZ limiting belief instead of get this garbage out of my life
Yeah.
and fill it with the feeling of resentment.
Right. And the idea of, oh, they're wrong and I'm right and I'm better and la 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 la. Yeah. The idea of the radiate is we get to choose what it is that we radiate. Is that the bottom line? Cool.
I'm feeling into that. Yeah, we get to choose what we radiate, and it'll magnify whatever I send out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there's stuff that we get in our own way, and like you said, sometimes what we are carrying isn't our stuff, it's ancestry stuff. And so choosing to stay present long enough to get shifted and focused through that piece, it just brings more choice and the ability to radiate love. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Cool. And when I think of radiate, there's a word that I never used in my life that Terry uses, radiant, radiant heat. Because I lived in Minnesota, we didn't talk like that. He was in Florida many, many years, and he talked like that. And he's like, yeah, no worry, radiant heat. It'll heat up the car. The car's not cold. It's in the sun. Because we have the Florida sun here. On the East Coast, it's really weird. They have the Florida sun. So it's not the Minnesota sun. So you can't usually keep your coat. Well, up in Connecticut, I couldn't keep my coat on during the winter when, the sun was out. I was real close to the ocean. Maybe that helped, but whatever. So here you do. But still, I guess it can get really hot in the car. Yeah. So there's radiate, and then there's radiant. And then I think of, when I look at the word radiate, I think of the sun and how the sun is like a ball of fire. It's gas too, right? And yeah. And so it's major, major, major energy that is like reaching out almost, just it's getting pushed out. And when we close off our hearts, there isn't anything coming out. and you hear about people in car accidents or whatever, and something has just broken their heart wide open, and it's not in a bad way kind of thing, right? And they can really get in touch with the love that is there in that human heart of theirs, and instead of holding it in and protecting it, because maybe someone even abused it at one point, it's just wide open no matter who crosses their path. No matter how ugly they are, they still radiate love at them. And that really changes people, especially when they're coming at you kind of gnarly, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's an interesting word, radiate.
So many thoughts. It strikes me. I wondered with each human radiating, what is it that we're passing between each other energetically? If I
Yeah.
look at abuse, any kind of abuse, it's been interesting to consider as I work with so many ancestors, like what if that's an unskillful way to share energy? And what if our souls decided, at some point that there was this big giant energy that needed to be shared because it was too much to carry just one person? And so it got
Yeah.
transferred through abuse. I'm so curious what kind of energy gets transferred through abuse. And like
Yeah.
not condoning it at the
What?
same time, like what's the blessing in there? Like as we dip into the shadow, what are the gifts that we
Yeah.
get to find in there? What, like you said, with the car accident, maybe it does rip the heart wide open. It puts me on a different path to go pursue knowledge in a different way. And again, now I have choices. And I honor, my mom was one that stopped a generational line of abuse. She just said it ends with me.
Wow.
At least with touch. And at the same time, like that was kind of a messy procedure.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Got energy. There was leftover energy, though.
The leftover energy, yeah. A lot of emotional stuff got transferred that maybe it wasn't physical, but it was definitely emotional.
Yeah.
So to sit with that and to reach into those gifts, and again, step out of the victim mentality instead of, well, this happened to me, to say, all right, something in me resonated with this, and I chose this. And why did I choose this? What gifts are in here to understand? What energy is there in here to transmute?
Mm-hmm.
How can I move through that and radiate love through the whole process? Come what may, and love it is a term from Joseph Wirthlin.
Mm-hmm. Cool beans. All right, so love is sound. And when you put that down, I was like, what? And you're like, well, God said, let there be light. That's a voice. That's sound. Right? So love is sound. Well, sound comes from vibration. Like you can go, on a crystal glass and get it to sing out. Jesus said, even he could get like the rocks to cry out, right?
Right.
How do you do that, right? Well, because vibration. Enough vibration creates a sound. So tell us more.
A man named Roger Hurd told me that sound came first before light. And I was feeling into that and feeling into like, well, do I believe that? And is there evidence for that? And yeah, I thought of, in the Bible, there's God's voice that comes before the light. God says, let there be light. I was walking through the forest with a friend in Zion National Park, and his question to me was like, well, who is Daniel? And help me understand, like, and he was curious, different aspects, he said, well, tell me about your gender orientation, and tell me about your sexual orientation, and tell me about where you've studied, and tell me about all this stuff. And I sat there for a minute, and I was I could hear the hum of the trees, as he was talking and as I was thinking about how to answer his question.
Yeah.
And I had this sense that like the trees were singing me.
Nice.
And I was singing them. And I reflected back to Alan. I said, Alan, Daniel is a collection of sounds.
Interesting.
And that's kind of based on what I had read from Eckhart Tolle. Like, my name is literally a collection of sounds, and
every letter.
It's a jumble of letters and
Yeah,
consonants.
it's measurable. Each letter has a different vibration of measure. Yeah.
But I felt into that like deeper than that.
I
Like,
bet you did.
oh wow, like I'm a collection of sounds.
Nice.
And I thought about how much power there is in nonverbal communication, what we
Yeah, man.
radiate. I thought about how much power there is in all the noises we make that aren't words.
Mm-hmm. Just work with horses and you'll see it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a control freak? You won't be able to get a horse to do anything. They won't have it. It's interesting.
Sound is so emotive. I mean, even as anger sounds or sadness sounds or fear sounds, I mean, children embody them in a beautiful way, right? It's and that says just as much as any words could.
Yep.
You know, the moaning, the crying. And so it's been awesome, you know, in my music training to get people to speak non-verbally. I'll give two people a drum and ask them to have a conversation back and forth. I did a group last night with family members, and they said, well, I want to talk to everybody. Don't make me just pick one. Like, this is, I haven't felt this kind of freedom before, to really express and to be heard and to be understood. And
wow,
I feel like words can get in the way almost.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and words and perception get really interesting because people's perceptions can be off, and they will choose words that show how off their perception is, right? And all of a sudden you're into something, an argument or whatever, that isn't even like reality of what's really going on, right?
I really appreciated the Kyle Cease video that you sent, Linda, about that idea of ego creates dilemmas when it gets bored.
When it gets bored. Oh, I don't remember that line. Outside of self is always the line I get from that one.
Yeah,
I like that though. When it gets bored.
When ego gets bored, it creates dilemmas outside of itself.
Oh, cool. Thank you for that. Remember.
Yeah, and that lit me up. Like, I have experienced that so often. My mind moves so fast.
It does. Yes, it does.
And it's like, I think a lot of times I just get bored and I start inventing, you know, going through this creative process in itself of birthing this book and of doing interviews and of receiving coaching. It's like there's so many dilemmas that get created just out of boredom. Yeah,
well, the entrepreneurial brain style is so similar to, you know, like ADHD. And with ADHD, it's not the lack of connection, it's the connection of, I don't know the difference between myself and the parent, so to speak. Of course, it's more mom than anything else. And so with ADHD, things have to be fast, moving, or angry. Then I know I'm over here and you're over here. So it's almost like a separation disorder, if you will. And yeah, it's fascinating to me. And like, so when I'm angry and you're not, I know I'm here and you're there. Get it?
So it's like a differentiation technique?
Not a well, I guess a technique for the kid, like trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
It's the developmental stage of separation that hasn't happened. And, you know, like neuroenergy wise, you know, autism is lower than even like Down syndrome, and ADHD is up like higher than Down syndrome, but it's not here. So the executive function isn't working properly. it takes a lot of energy to get the brain on. And they used to say, oh, it's a focusing problem. It's like, really? My kid's been doing Legos for hours. Focusing just fine. No, it's the neural energy issue, like all the other labels, you know, for the most part. And it just fascinates me.
You mentioned executive functioning. I mean, I'll find myself in the kitchen and I've like literally started 4 tasks. It's like I've got stuff in my
multitasking ability. Yeah, it's like 10 TVs can be on at the same time. You can follow every one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, focus, sure. And it's been, I mean, my own presentness with the moment has helped that so much. Like to take a breath, and to pause all 70 gazillion thoughts.
Right.
Of, well, I'm hungry, but the dishes need to be done, but you know, I'll have 18 thoughts simultaneously, and then, well, I need to go start the laundry, and I need to go. It's like, wait, like,
yeah,
focus,
wait,
and choose to create this sandwich right now.
Yeah,
like,
and
come into the present moment of one task at a time, and let go of.
Yeah.
Well, if I don't do the laundry, I'll get to it when I get to it, and it's been awesome to start to order my life that way.
Yep. With permission, really. The thing is, you know, up in your head and all the thoughts and ideas, that's all human. That's just like your shell going off, if you will. And when you bring the soul in, which is you're telling me, stop think, you know, not think, stop thinking, you know, and just be present. That's an invitation to get your soul in there. And that's a slower vibration almost. It's just interesting how that works. And things just come to you and you just get them done, right? It's almost like I hate this word equal because I don't believe in balance or equal. Things just are the way they are when they need to be that way. It is almost like the equal balance of the masculine and the feminine to have the thoughts, the different thoughts of what needs to get done, and the masculine to actually put it into action. And it's just that beautiful flow back and forth, just like a good conversation. Does that make sense?
That's true for me.
Yeah.
I thought for a long time too that I had to balance masculine and feminine 50-50, and that's not necessarily true either.
No, you'd be screwed if you did that.
Yeah, find the
you'd
balance.
Never sleep.
What works.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, balance is a choice. It's like you can like take a little teeter-totter thing and you can put rocks on it, and then if you want the teeter-totter to touch something down here, you get to like, lessen the rocks over here, so it starts to drop down. It's all about choice. It's not about balance. That's why the word balance drives me nuts.
Or yeah, mixture.
Well, yeah, the like alchemy.
Right.
Like what's the magic of the day gonna be? Well, you're the alchemist. Figure it out.
Yeah, what's the ratio of how much, you know, how many capital M masculine traits and how many capital F feminine traits
are going to get me through this task of my day, right?
Right.
Neat. Very neat. Yeah, and when it comes to sexuality, it's based on preference. And sure, there's, you know, there's what do you call it? Hormones and stuff too. It's just like little kids, their preference is like little girls to be, there's the tomboy stage. And, you know, that whole thing is preference. And now, you know, it's like, oh, I just must not be a girl because this is my preference, and they're getting sex changes as children. Like, what? Right? Sexuality is preference. Why do we have to even like look a certain way, you know? It's crazy, isn't it?
I think, yeah, there's so much that I don't understand yet.
That'll get worse as you get older. You'll understand even less. And really, that's just living outside of ego, because ego has to understand everything and claims it does. Right?
Sure.
It's interesting. Okay. So anything else on love is sound? We hit that real good. We're doing good. We're a half hour in, and I need this to be fairly fluffed out. So we're doing good. Anything else on love is sound?
I think that's good for now.
Okay. And then light is second. Light was second, right? So we explained it. What else comes to you about like light bulb moment, right? When you get in touch with sound. Oh, really quick, I got something to. When I had a really bad root canal that I didn't know I had root canal going bad, I got super, super, super on the autism level, because I would like lay waiting for like a practitioner to come in, work on me, like craniosacral or whatever, and I could hear the buzzing of the fluorescent lights. I was so toxic. I was so sick in my system that it was so hyper vigilant. I was like you were able to hear the trees kind of thing. I was hearing those lights for different reasons.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time there, like hearing lights. And
oh, you do?
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's a big part of my world.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's amazing when you start looking at, like, if you did a hair sample, to just see like how many heavy metals you have inside and stuff. See what your levels of toxicity really are. It'd be really good. Okay, so what else do you want to say about light second?
I've always resonated. There's a good sound word.
Yeah.
With, I've been described as a bright soul. I really resonate with the ideas of stars, and like space fascinates me. Yeah, the way that light can radiate and travel. And it's fascinating to me that light shows up on a spectrum.
Yeah.
Right?
That includes color.
That includes color, right?
That
like
heals organs.
Yeah, like red waves are slower than green waves, which are slower than purple waves, and they all have different functions and all have different healings. And like the same way, like you said, light can be applied to heal organs, and like it's all sound, and it's all waves, I should say. And I resonated so much with light and look to the light and
bring the baby to the light and under the Tuscan sun. Remember that in Italy? That's what they do. They bring the baby to the light because that's where the baby came from.
Right. And I resonate that like I came from a light source, and there's all these, I'm fascinated in scripture to learn about all the heavenly bodies and how, light proceeds forth from God to fill the immensity of space. And I feel like there's so much to understand about the nature of light. Like, well, is it a wave or is it a particle? Well, yes, it depends how you observe it. And when I think about the nature of God, like, well, does God have a body of flesh and bone that's immortal? Or is he everywhere and nowhere and all the where and through all things?
Omnipresent, omniscient.
And it's like, well, yes, depends how you observe God. And I spent so much time in life thinking, I look at, the power of force. diagram, like charts.
Power versus force, that one?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
one.
David
Power
Hawkins' book, yeah.
Force. It like charts the feelings and the different vibrations of different feelings.
Yep.
And that's fascinated me that, you know, it's on a spectrum just like light is.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I thought, like, well, sadness must be bad because it's slow, and shame must be bad because you're almost dead. And at the same time, it's like, well, I know that red light isn't bad. Like, life would be pretty boring without red. It's just a slower wave. You know, green light isn't bad. And so, for me, I guess that's one way to come into acceptance with different feelings.
Yeah. Takes me to differentiation.
Yeah, it's all part of the spectrum.
Yep.
And isn't that what I'm here to experience? Is the full spectrum?
Yeah. Well put. And diversity, right? It's really crazy though. Our soul is here for the diversity. Our human is like, no diversity, you have to be the same as me. Like what? It's crazy.
I'm feeling too, it strikes me as important. Not sure where that thought went. Just let it go.
You're
Come
right.
back around if it wants to.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, that was good. Yeah, I had a shamanic experience where I was with the sun and then I was moving to Earth to be born and I was like, brakes on. I looked like an astronaut with its arms and legs straight out, like sitting, you know, and I just almost went into a panic attack. And she's like, okay, well, come back, you know, put your head down on the sun's lap and let the sun just stroke you for a little while until you're ready, you know. Whoa, there was a lot of junk under that. Really crazy stuff. Talk about the ancestors, right? Yep. Okay, are you done with light second then? Going to want to go into created in the image of God because we're at well, I don't know what time we really got started, but we're at 9:44, so we're doing good. So you want to hit the last one? Okay.
Sure.
What you got?
So
we kind of touched on it already. So
yeah, I mean, when we asked my soul, what's the one thing that I could share with humanity before I cease to exist? It would be my belief that I am created in the image of God and that we are created in the image of God. There's a statement in 1919 from a guy named Joseph F. Smith, and he said that we were begotten, born, and reared to maturity, spiritual maturity, by heavenly parents. And that rings in my soul so loud.
Yeah, heavenly parents. Just
heavenly
hear that,
parents,
folks.
Like masculine presence, feminine presence. And it hit me that the same way, or at least in an analogous way, that I crave family here on Earth. Like the Earth is essentially organized into families, right? Like for all the options that the cosmos could be organized, somehow a man and a woman are attracted to be together and connect in every way possible. And then a lot of times an egg gets fertilized by a sperm, and then 23 chromosomes of the man and 23 of the woman come together and create this new life. And that's how Earth is organized. And we have a very basic biological drive to create that over and over and over again. And that I see as a blueprint from heavenly parents. And what's powerful for me is that idea of when I wear slippers, my gait, the way I walk is the same as my father. Like it's identical. And there are little mannerisms and there are little phrases and there are these patterns, my disciplining style. Like how many people notice that they do things just like their parents and they swore they never would.
Yeah, man. And how many parents go, oh shit.
Right. Do what I say, not what I do,
That's
please.
me, or that's my mother. Oh my god, my kids are like acting out my mother with their doll. No, because
Right.
that came from you too, not just your mother.
Oh wow. And somebody shared, I was lecturing recently at like a women's celebration event, and one lady had shared, um, my daughters have all the eggs in them when they're born that they'll ever have. And so, in a very real sense, I just birthed my entire posterity. And that goes every generation. Like, it feels so poignant to me that, like, everything is there from the beginning, ready, equipped.
Hmm.
And it keeps coming back to identity for me, our purpose. Um, how do I make sense of what I'm experiencing on earth? It comes back to identity. Who am I really? As I've meditated, I have felt into the self-existent oneness, the strands of me that have always existed and that will always exist. And that feels so powerful to me. I haven't understood fully if that's the soul or the nature of what that is, but I can taste it. And when I'm up in my feelings and up in my stuff, I've found an ability to like pause and taste some of that isness at the same time that I'm having a gazillion thoughts and that I'm having really uncomfortable pain, or that, I have this emotional pain. And it keeps coming back to like, I think these are the God seeds in me. And I'm curious what I inherited from my heavenly parents, if I'm begotten and born and reared of heavenly parents. Um, and what's my destiny ultimately? My destiny is to become homo luminous and to like embody a fullness of all my creative potential. I believe that God, my heavenly parents create kids and planets and everything there is to create all day, every day. And that their whole purpose is to generate all the resources needed for me to step into that same lifestyle and create worlds without end and create a posterity that goes forever and ever and ever through all eternity, and to recreate and to enjoy the bliss and the fullness of everything there is to experience, a fullness of sadness, a fullness of fear, a fullness of joy, a fullness of anger, and to be feeling those all at the same time.
Hmm.
And it's powerful to think about that idea of like, I'm literally created in the image of God.
Yeah,
And
that's a lot. Keep going.
when I come from that place, I do naturally radiate love.
Hmm.
I do have all the creative potential. When words come out of my mouth, they get fulfilled, especially when I put grateful energy behind them. And to understand those tools that I'm always creating, either out of fear or out of hate, or I'm creating out of faith or belief or love or excitement. And I very much love and appreciate the results that come back when I'm creating out of faith and out of
Mm,
belief and out of love.
nice.
At my core, I believe that I was created out of love, that I
Hmm.
was celebrated for existing when my heavenly parents conceived me and birthed me and raised me. And I love going through that experience again now with a body capable of sensation
Hmm.
and reveling in all those sensations, no matter what they are, and looking for the gifts. And that gives me purpose
Hmm.
to meet with a woman who I commit to for eternity and plan on creating a cosmos together, and that endows my whole life with purpose. That's what I feel like I'm here to do, is to own the fullness of my creatorship and keep stepping into that, in new layers of that and new aspects of that and more fullness of that. And that includes too, like, getting my soul fully into my body.
Yep. And when you're doing that, Daniel, you're no longer living in your pain body or your ego, especially your pain body, right? Because there's a lot of pain there, as we talked about heritage and ancestry, and yeah, that the pain body is human and it's eternal. I mean, it goes down forever and ever and ever, right? And it's going to continue forever and ever, and it's going to improve. Yes, we are evolving. It's getting less and less. That's great. It's just part of human. It's always going to be there. And so when you think about mother wounding and father wounding, it's all there in the pain body. When you can switch over to who you really are, which is a soul, you know, a soul being, if you will, then yeah, you can, for lack of better words, overcome any of the stuff that's like dragging you down from this world, because at the level of your soul, you're all powerful, right? And you can be anywhere at any time. You can connect with people without even being with them. Like, moms are good at that. They sit up in bed going, because they know the teenager just had a car accident, right?
Right. Like, she's so aware and so connected, and that same sense is in me. You know, I do energy work over the phone, and it's like massive successful results from people going like, wow, I've never felt that aspect of myself before. Thank you. Wow, how did you know I was connected to all these people? And it's like, I feel like I am so connected to so many more people than I realized. Oh my gosh, yesterday, 11:50, there was a girl I met in Brazil 12 years ago. She was 9 years old, and I had shared some of my journey with her, and I had met her like through the church that we were participating in together. And she found me last night on Facebook and just said, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's you. You know, you sent me this letter 11 years ago when you got married, and I appreciated it so much. It was so meaningful to me, and I always meant to write you back, but I never did. And then I wasn't sure how to find you because I live in Brazil and I was 10 years old, and you live in America. And then I ended up going to Portugal, and I met a girl in Portugal who has a grandma that lived in the same town that you do. And so they started like looking for your address, and
oh my goodness,
all these people with the name of Adams trying to find you. And I finally found you tonight. Like, how are you? And I just felt like, oh my gosh, like this was 12 years ago and some 9-year-old, you know, it's like every interaction counts.
Yeah. Yes.
Like the connections that I make and the love that I radiate and the sound that I emit and share and love, like people remember that. And when we're speaking soul to soul, like that stuff, you can't help but reconnect. Like it's going to come back around. I just felt like that was so miraculous and just a great example of like, wow, like impact goes so much deeper than I think. You know, we impact so many more people than we realize.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the purpose on earth too, is just to share love back and forth through light, through sound, by seeing each other in the fullness of who we really are, divine essences.
It's definitely about connection. The human must connect. What's that?
It is for me.
It is for everybody. If you think about it, like I've been watching Tiny Tearaways on YouTube. Are you familiar with that show?
Not yet.
Have you heard of the Starting Over House? Oh, that was like way back when. That was like you'd love that one too. What is it? Two life coaches and two female life coaches, and a psychologist. The females one is Caucasian, one's black, the other one, however you want to say that ethically, and then the white psychologist guy. And it's an interesting dynamic, because like the black gal, she is just, I tell you, that whole, the whole slavery and all that stuff, they're so in their power. Those women are just dynamite, right? So she comes in with like almost the bad mom energy, and the other one comes in kind of more with the good mom energy. It's really interesting dynamic how they work so well, riffing off of each other too. Anyways, the House of Tiny Tearaways, but every time boils down to that it's not the kids, it's the parents. And she she's a clinical psychologist, and she's from Britain, so it's about good girl and good boy and stuff like that, and oh, you're brilliant, and all the stuff that we go, oh, don't do that to kids. It's just really amazing, and I started to even like transfer the show over to my dog. Like, how do she drives me crazy when she does it. Yeah, well, who taught her to do that, and I worked with a guy who worked with juvenile delinquents, and he always ended up changing the parents, and he never hardly worked with the kids. The kids completely changed, their juvie records just chilled. What?
Yeah, I find in my experience that the kids are just the magnifiers.
Ooh, speak to that some more. We're almost done, but keep going.
I find I believe my son is pure. I believe my son is still gaining his accountability. There are scriptures that teach that like kids are incapable of sin. That's just not a possibility.
And then we're hearing like in the Christian church, born into sin. Like you start your life out as a little sinner.
Right. Like in the Book of Mormon, it speaks pretty strongly like children do not have the capacity to sin. Like Christ already handled all of that and took care of it. Like, sure, there was the fall, and Christ took care of that too. So like kids are born in Christ, and like any kid that dies goes straight to heaven because they don't have the accountability yet.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. That makes for a lot more loving,
right,
upbringing, relationship wise.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that's what you saw in the show too. It was like the kid chilled out when the parent connected with the kid, when the parent got on the floor and played with the kid, when the parent owned their own shit.
Yeah. Well, and I have a 7-year-old right now, and he's so pure. And when I'm up in my stuff, he'll totally reflect that. Like when I'm feeling a bunch of like self-loathing and I hate myself, it's been this joke, because when he like is making an art piece and he won't do it like he likes, he'll say like, oh, I didn't do it like I like it, and I hate myself, and I'm feeling like I hate myself right now. So we have this like family joke that's like, are you still a good person? And like cognitively go, well, yeah, but he's so pure, and he reflects so many of the thoughts that I've had. The times that I don't want to go to church, I'll be feeling like, I don't know, I'm not feeling it today, and he'll just go off and be like, I'm not going, I don't like the way I feel when I'm there, like on and on and on. And once we get there, it's fine, and like magnifies any feeling that I have. Wow. A lot of times, like if I'm needing to have some kind of release, like I'm ignoring my anger, he'll do stuff that just pisses me off so much until I blow, and then he's totally done. Like he goes back to whatever he's doing. It's like I swear, it's like, my perception is that he notices when I'm not fully authentic with my feelings, and he'll just mirror and magnify whatever those are until I can sit with him, because he's the pure one.
Nice.
At least for now. And it's been an interesting flavor to look like, all right, he is my most effective mirror.
Yeah.
What's mirroring back to me right now?
Is he a manifesting generator, or didn't you run him?
I don't remember.
Because a manifesting generator is a channel. It's not about channeling, but they are a channel. So they would be a good mirror for you. Right.
Shefali Sabri has a lot of resources about children are the mirror. Be the parent, handle your own stuff, stop projecting it on the children, because the children just mirror literally whatever we put out. They're a beautiful part of the feedback loop. Just appreciate so much your genius, Linda.
Thank you.
I appreciate your passion for these projects, for these interviews. I'm honored to be part of them. Grateful for how you've helped me see through ego and help me see my own self-sabotage patterns, I guess. And it's been a cool process for me and a great learning experience. I appreciate it very much.
Cool beans. I appreciate you too.